After 20 years. It was a dark, windy night in New York City. The time was barely 10 o'clock, but the chilly gusts of wind had left the streets nearly empty of people. The policemen on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. When about midway of a certain block, the policeman suddenly slowed his walk. In the doorway of a darkened hardware store, a man leaned with an unlighted cigar in his mouth. As the policeman walked up to him, the man spoke up quickly, assuring him that he was just waiting for a friend there. It was an appointment that had been made 20 years ago.
About that long ago,
the man said,
there used to be a restaurant where this store stands, Big Joe Brady's restaurant. It was torn down 5 years ago,
said the policeman. The man in the doorway struck a match and lit his cigar. The light showed a pale, square-jawed face with keen eyes and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. His scarf pin was a large diamond, oddly set.
20 years ago tonight,
said the man,
I dined here at Big Joe Brady's with Jimmy Wells, my best chum and the finest chap in the world. He and I were raised here in New York, just like two brothers together. The next morning I was to start for the West to make my fortune. Well, we agreed that night that we would meet here again exactly 20 years from that date and time, no matter what our conditions might be or from what distance we might have to come.
The policeman found the story interesting and asked,
It's a rather long time between meets. Haven't you heard from your friends since you left?
The man replied,
Well, we corresponded for a while, but then lost touch since I got too busy. But I know Jimmy will meet me here if he's alive, for he always was the truest, staunchest old chap in the world. I came 1,000 miles to stand in this door tonight, and it's worth it if my old partner turns up.
The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch, the lids of it set with small diamonds.
3 minutes to 10.
He announced.
We parted here at exactly 10 o'clock 20 years ago.
He had done pretty well out in the West, as the policeman deduced. As the man said, he would wait at least half an hour more for his old friend Jimmy. The policeman bade him good night and continued on his way. There was now a fine, cold drizzle falling. The few foot passengers on the street hurried along the road with coat collars turned high and pocketed hands. And in the door of the hardware store, the man smoked his cigar and waited. About 20 minutes the man waited, and then a tall man in a long overcoat with his collar turned up to his ears hurried across from the opposite side of the street. He went directly to the waiting man.
Is that you, Bob?
He asked doubtfully.
Is that you, Jimmy Wells?
Cried the man in the door.
Bless my heart!
Exclaimed the new arrival, grasping both the other's hands with his own.
I was certain I'd find you here if you were still in existence. Well, 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 20 years is a long time. How has the West treated you, old man? It has given me everything I asked it for. You've changed lots, Jimmy. I never thought you were so tall by 2 or 3 inches. Oh, I grew a bit after I was 20. Doing well in New York, Jimmy? Moderately. I have a position in one of the city departments. Come on, Bob. We'll go around to a place I know of and have a good long talk about old times.
The two men started up the street, arm in arm. At the corner stood a drugstore, brilliant with electric lights. When they came into this glare, each of them turned simultaneously to gaze upon the other's face. The man from the West stopped suddenly and released his arm.
You are not Jimmy Wells,
he snapped.
20 years is a long time, but not long enough to change a man's nose from a Roman to a pug. It sometimes changes a good man into a bad one,"
said the tall man.
"You've been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob." "Now, before we go on to the station, here's a note I was asked to hand you. It's from Patrolman Wells."
The man from the west unfolded the little piece of paper handed to him. The note was rather short.
"Bob, I was at the appointed place on time. When you struck the match to light your cigar, I saw it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. Somehow, I couldn't do it myself, so I went around and got a plainclothesman to do the job."
"Jimmy,"